Greetings, my friend. Father Leo here again, on 16th Sunday of Ordinary Time. And today I want to work at the image of the Good Shepherd. Jesus claimed to be the Good Shepherd. Now, it didn't mean he was looking after a bunch of sheep. What he was doing was showing his compassion, the love and the compassion of God. The love and compassion of God. And how within that context, there would be leaders who would bring forward and help people to experience the love and compassion of a loving and compassionate God. That's the key to this whole reading today. Now, Jesus apparently was not very happy with them. And he certainly made that very clear. And he called them a bunch of hypocrites, because they really weren't good examples of what Jesus wanted to see in spiritual leaders. Now, as a cradle Catholic, growing up in a little Irish Catholic community, I have a memory, and you may see eventually how that memory played out in my life. It was really, very important memory. I was a kid, I don't know, let's say 8, 9 years old, maybe 10. And we were a family of 11. And my father, he had a grade 4 education. Because his father died, he had to stay home with his mother and do the farming. But he became self-educated. Now, that's my father. Now, the context in which he lived then, and even now, to some extent, you didn't challenge the local priest, the pastor. If the pastor said jump, you simply said, how high? How high? And if you're going to do something you might be a little irregular, then you went to the pastor and asked permission. And so in many ways, my experience as a child was that dynamic of power and control. Power and control. The pastor had the power and the control, and the lay people controlled. However, one time the pastor of the parish decided to sell some of the church property. Keep in mind now, this is back when there was tremendous poverty in the parish. And he saw a chance to get a little money to help finance the parish. So I can see his reasoning. But my father said to himself, I don't like this. I don't like it. And he gathered around him the men of the parish, and they had a discussion, which my father led. And the next Sunday, he set up a meeting with the pastor. And he stood up and he challenged him and spoke about the reasons why he and the parishioners did not want that land sold. And he made a strong case for it, and the pastor had to back down. He had to back down and choose not to sell that land. Now, if you lived back then and you heard that story, which I'm very familiar with, if you had told that story, a Catholic would have said, geez, I wonder when lightning hit him. How did God punish him for confronting the priest? Because you see, clericalism was alive then. Clericalism is alive today. And the tremendous harm it has done over the years, particularly in the last number of years, when people have become better educated. All right, so that's kind of the story on that one. I just want you to have that story, that somehow my father was tested, but he had to test himself. He had to test himself. Have I got the courage and the strength to confront the powers of the church? Will I lose the respect my reputation be shattered by other parishioners who condemn me for being a bad guy of challenging the pastor. He had to deal with all that. He was tested. He was tested, and he had the courage to overcome that. He grew up, in other words. He grew up and acted like a responsible Christian, a responsible parishioner, and made a difference in that parish. Made a difference. So that's kind of what I'm talking about today. Now, when you read the first reading today, again, it's the idea of the shepherds. But Jesus is not proud of them. It's from Jeremiah the prophet, and he was a fiery son of a gun. When he came after you, you'd better duck. So anyway, Jeremiah takes a look at the scenery. And what does he see? Shepherds who are not shepherding the people of God. They're not. He says, you have not attended to them. You have not attended to them. In other words, you're failed. As shepherds, you're failing. You're all there and you're self-centered. You're doing what you can for yourself. And legalism is the big thing. And of course, with that legalism, you think you have power to control the people, but not to look after them and their spirituality and their temporal needs. So he's really talking to the shepherds of the day, and he's saying, not happy with you at all. Not happy at all. You're not being faithful. And then we move to the gospel, and by golly, we run up against the same thing. Now Jesus has gathered around him shepherds, his community who are becoming his followers, his core group, if you will. And he knows he has to attend to their spirituality. He has to attend to it. That they have to grow up and be self-starters and speak up and not be intimidated by the powers. Because Jesus knew just as the powers would judge and condemn him, so the powers would be judging his friends, his shepherds, if you will. And would they stand the test? That's the question. Would they stand the test, or would they fail? Well, Jesus wanted to prepare them so they wouldn't fail. He wanted to. And so it says he took them aside, and the crowd came, and he wanted to show to the people, here's what you do. You have compassion on the people. You don't have power over them to control them. You have compassion so you can serve them. There's the big difference. It's not domination, it's the servant to the people in need. Compassion. And that's the model, really, for the priesthood. It has been. Now, how well it's been lived out, of course, within organized religion, where you have levels of clericalism, from the poor, humble priest like me, to bishops, higher up the hierarchy, monsignors, cardinals, pope, curia. It's all there. Hierarchy, clericalism. And as we often said, everything comes from the top down. Awful hard to get anything to go back up. So it's that tremendous power to control, the power to give God to people or deny God to people. That's an awesome thing. That's an awesome mentality. It's an office mentality, but boy, when you get it operating, it's very painful to people. And so Jesus has compassion on the people because, as he said, they're like sheep without a shepherd. They're like sheep without a shepherd. And I really don't want to be too critical of our life today, but in many ways, that's what we have. Sheep without a shepherd. And It has cost our community tremendously. People dissatisfied, rebelling against legalism, claiming self-affirmation, self-starters, self-organizers, and the old motto of go to church, pay, pray, and obey. Well, that's no good. Doesn't work anymore. Our society isn't built like that anymore. And yet, the organization is there in place, and I really don't see much change in it. Now, Vatican Council from the 60s, you may remember, they brought to the church what was known parish councils. And the image of the church changed from a triangle, a hierarchy, with the one at the top and spreading out across and the bottom, changed from a triangle to a circle. Now, this was a valiant effort, but it lacks one thing. The council fathers were afraid. They were afraid to give lay people power. Oh, yes. No power. Parish councils could be advisors. They could be advisors. And anything they decided they wanted to do, thought they should do, that God was calling them to, the pastor could say no. Not going to happen. So he was still in control. Now, if they were to come back with another council and say, the parish council has the power to act on behalf of the parishioners, it'd be a whole different story. Whole different story. And that every parish had to have a parish council that had the authority to make decisions of governance. But that's not happened at this point. And to be honest with you, I don't see it happening in the near future. Now, a lot of writers are talking about clericalism and how it needs to change. Now, they're not saying get rid of the priests. Most of us are good guys. You know, we care about people. And like Jesus said there, he acted with compassion. So, but the structure is such that it's difficult to step away from the structure and follow the calling of the Spirit. It's difficult. And if you don't follow the inspiration of the Spirit, what have you got? Basically nothing. And I think that's showing up. Right now, the churches are open this weekend. I am wondering how many people are going to go back. They've got so comfortable sitting at home, watching a video on TV, which I really think is, I just can't see it, to be honest with you. This is a meal, not a video. The Mass is a meal. It's not a video where you watch one man pray. God, how far we've drifted away from it all. It's a meal. You've got to be there to eat and drink. Eat the Word and drink the Word and the Eucharist. It's a meal. It's not a video. And so, I don't know that people are reduced to watching a video and feeling better. Then, if it works, it works. Not for me to judge, but it sure wouldn't work for me. Which really brings me to the second reading. And I hope you realize that I didn't choose this. But again, it's a conversation between me and an old woman. See the old woman? I remember the last parish I was in. Adele there. She was a friend. And every Saturday afternoon, she came over to the church an hour before Mass, and we'd have a conversation. And I called her one of the wise women of the parish. And she was wise. She was a wise woman. And I remember her saying to me, A bishop can ordain you in 20 minutes. And if you are coachable, the people can make you a pastor in 20 years. If you are coachable. If you're coachable. But I've really profited a great deal from her, that wise woman. So here we are. Me ask the question, does the Creator test me? The old woman. She doesn't. You test yourself. Just like Jesus. She turns it back. She turns it back, eh? Pretty cute. But she's probably read the gospel, see? And she know how Jesus handled questions. Turn it back. Sneaky, eh? Pretty effective, though. But I don't. Things just happen. Old woman. That's when you test yourself. There's the shift again. That's when you test yourself. And I know that my father, he had to test himself before he had the courage and the maturity to step up and challenge the pastor. Had the pastor. And you know, that's one of the big problems we've faced. Yes, clericalism, that power and control. And the flip side of that is the Catholic people were tested. Are being tested. Yes, they are. They are being tested. That's when you test yourself. So there we are. That's when you will test yourself. So the old woman is putting it right back on the questioner. That's when you test yourself. Am I going to remain silent, passive, or I'm going to stand up like an adult, meet the challenge, and speak up, protest, and not take things lying down? Ooh. That's a challenge. Old woman. No one does. But the Creator does not give you tests. So often, it's been thought, well, God sends me suffering. Or God sends me misfortune. Or God is doing this and God is doing that. God is doing the other thing. Well, the one thing He's telling you here very clearly, and I agree with Him, God has never tested me. I have tested myself. I have tested myself. I have been tested. And what the old woman says, she gives you an opportunity to prove to yourself how much you want to change and grow. Ooh, come on, old woman. You're kind of laying it on pretty hard here. Why should I want to change and grow? I'm all right the way I am. Well, maybe. She says, it's never the Creator who needs the convincing. Right back again, square, right between the eyes, or the heart. It's not the Scripture, not the Creator that needs convincing. It's us. We have to be convinced that we of the 21st century have got to choose, make a decision to grow and experience transformation. Grow and experience transformation. We can no longer be passive. The day is gone, long gone, when Catholics can be silent. When Catholics can sit back and just let it happen. It's over, folks. It's over. It's dead in the water. It is. It's not just me. It's the Scriptures. It's Jesus. It's Jeremiah. It's the man who wrote this, who's a mystic. And my God, what more authority do we need? And many writers are telling us that today. To grow up, and grow up. Raise our consciousness. raise our consciousness, become more adult, more mature, and realize that as a body of believers, we are responsible for that community to which we belong. And if we have to protest, if we have to challenge the pastor, then do so. The sky won't fall on you, I can guarantee it. It didn't fall on my father, and that was back when people thought it would. Well, today we don't think it would. But I'm just saying, come on. This is what it's saying to us. We are the shepherds. We are the shepherds to the poor, the hungry, the oppressed, the homeless, people in jail, people in hospital. We are to be a shepherding community. A shepherding community. And if we're not being a shepherding community, we're missing the mark. We are missing the mark. And at this time in history, my friends, we are being tested big time. We are being tested, not God. We are being tested about ourselves. And the response has to be an active one, growth and transformation, and we have to stand up and confront the powers. Stand up and confront the powers. Stand up and confront the powers. God bless.